Welcome to the Mundus Fractura Law Guide. This week on Law Guide, we will take a deeper look at an institution that has stood for generations, spanning as far back as the Ninth Era. Today, we look at the legendary Goblin Foundry. The Goblin Foundry Incorporated was established in the mid-Ninth Era, sometime after the fall of the T.T.R.P.G Empire at the end of the Eighth Era, by a group of freed Goblin slaves. The site was already a new but established mine and foundry at the time of the T.T.R.P.G downfall. Though the free goblins remained in the area for several generations after the fall of their metal oppressors, they did not immediately take over the site, instead working the land and building settlements in the area. It took an industrious and enterprising young goblin named Ikora to see the unclaimed potential sitting right in their collective backyard. With the assistance of some friends and promise of shiny to a few of the local ogres, she took over the site and within short order turned it into a profitable mining and foundry operation. The site has evolved much over the eras. Initially, the foundry and mine occupied two distinct areas, but as the spoil pile grew and the company began to run short of space, the operations were eventually merged. In the first of these major overhauls to operations, known as the leveling of the 10th Era, the now titanic spoil pile was spread across the surrounding countryside. This massive works project saw the surrounding goblin settlements relocated into the unused top portions of the mine. The plan bore fruit in the way of massive increases in operation efficiency. If your employees live at work and work at work, well, that just reeks of profit. The leveling also saw the relocation of the foundry to the mine entrance. The bastion, as it was known to the locals, served two purposes. First, as a defensive structure for the mine and communities below. The bastion appeared as a massive, circular stone fortress, similar in appearance to a classic stone wizard's tower, but larger and heavily fortified by great bands of iron, bronze, and technetium. The interior was only accessible via a colossal freight elevator built into the foundry's side. The second purpose of the structure was to house the foundry on the surface, but as close to the raw materials as possible. As the eras passed, the mine grew larger and larger. The lessons learned from the leveling in the 10th Era were applied as the mine grew. The settlement structures and foundry operations moved from the surface and upper tunnels, all of it mounted onto gigantic railcar-like platforms so they could easily follow the resource seams regardless of where they traveled. In place of ejecting the mining spoil for disposal on the surface, old unneeded tunnels were filled in with new spoil. The massive spoil fields around the foundry made during the leveling became a great meadow as far as the eye could see, its rich grasses attracting great herds of aurochs, of which the goblins took full advantage of as a food source. The foundry became renowned across the Western Vale, not only for its wide variety of metal, but also weapons and armor. Crude though they may have been by the standard of elves and dwarves, the sheer availability of stock and low pricing made them sought-after items by many nations for the use in outfitting large amounts of basic troops. Late in the 14th or penultimate era, the Goblin Foundry Board of Directors brokered a lucrative deal with the Old Alliance to once yearly use the foundry as the location for a tournament known as the Most Intense Elimination, or MIE for short. From the Alliance perspective, this yearly tournament saw 5 brave Alliance heroes compete to infiltrate the foundry and delve into its depths in search of their goal, the Great Fire Hydra Egg. However, from the Goblin perspective, MIE was a contest of great reward to any employee who could foil the infiltration. Every employee that landed a killing blow on an Alliance infiltrator stood to win a life of leisure and luxury for the rest of their days. The event was a live illusory broadcast to major centers across the Western Vale, and had been a focal point for both cultures from its very first broadcast. In the year 10 and 70 of the Common Time, the events of the Victories once again reshaped the workings of the ancient Foundry. Not since the leveling of the 10th era had there been such drastic reformation to the landmark's operation. The targeted meteor strike and resulting residuum blight had, if you will excuse the pun, little impact on the Foundry's overall operations. The vast majority of both the corporation's workforce and general population was fully protected from the blast. Millennia of mining and expansion of both the mobile urban centers and corporations' mobile industrial operations left them virtually unscathed, the deep and expansive mines acting as a bomb shelter. The only real casualty was that of the surface operations, which by this point acted more as a mascot than a functional foundry for the corporation. Along with the old foundry fortress itself, only a few of the company's front-facing retail staff were lost in the event, along with a modest amount of inventory, but little else. There is no longer a most intense elimination, as the entire tournament section is now a residuum-blighted crater, but there are rumors of a new event in the works to replace the legendary tournament. In the years since the Victories, the Goblin Foundry has embraced its new situation and has very successfully added residuum mining and processing to its operations. Goblin Foundry International stock, going by the ticker GFI, has skyrocketed in value. The company's revenues now rival those of the Residuum Mining Consortium of the City of Residuum and Sanford Grains on the Deep Isla stock market. I have barely scratched the surface on this topic. In a future episode, we will delve into the unseen depths of the peoples of the Goblin Foundry, the everyday goblins, orcs, and ogres deep below. A hidden nation, within a company, within a nation. That is all for this time. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for future lore, guide shorts, and thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.